Pickford. I'm Robert Ramey, President of the Academy, and tonight, we honor the woman known throughout this century as America's sweetheart. Mary Pickford was born 100 years ago, just as the new medium of film was being born. Currently, arts institutions around the country are celebrating the Centennial of the motion picture. Our program tonight has been designated as a Centennial event and an official part of that celebration. It is fitting that Mary, who contributed so much to the development and dissemination of the movies around the world, should be honored in this historical context. To guide us through the life and work of Miss Pickford, we have with us the noted film critic and journalist Sheila Benson. She will be taking us back to the early days of the motion picture and helping us to understand the role that Mary played, both as the first woman to become a large Hollywood star and also a powerful Hollywood producer. So now, would you please help me to welcome Miss Sheila Benson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Thank you, Bob, very much. Tonight we celebrate something really special, the birthday centennial of Mary Pickford. In today's frenzied film climate, when movies have to be made in one weekend, whether they stand or fall, it's almost impossible to imagine her era and her impact. She was the most consistently popular actress of the silent age, as well as one of the most prolific. In 1915, it was estimated that each day of the year, 15 million people saw a Mary Pickford film. In 1914, an astute San Francisco exhibitor, Pop Grauman, who was the father of Sid Grauman of our Grauman's Chinese, put the words "America's sweetheart" in electric lights over Pickford's Tess of the Storm country, and the country was quick to turn a publicity phrase into genuine homage. But she didn't begin in films. When 16-year-old Mary Pickford auditioned for D.W. Griffith at Biograph in 1909, she had been on the stage for 11 years. She had played Uncle Tom's Cabin with pneumonia and learned acting from David Belasco. So when Griffith told her that she was too little and too fat, but he might give her a job, she looked him straight in the eye and asked for $10 a day instead of a beginner's $5. Little Mary got it. And over the next 3.5 years, Mary Pickford made more than 141 reelers. She was not yet 20 years old. Don't let the sticky, sweet sound of America's sweetheart mislead you. Historian Kevin Brownlow was closer to the mark. He called Mary Pickford essentially a comedienne, an endearing little spitfire. She projected warmth and charm that was utterly without self-pity and laced with the uncontrollable fire of the Irish. Cross her, and she'd storm off to do something about it, frequently something hilarious, as we will see later this evening. Mary Pickford refused to exaggerate her performances, even for Mr. Griffith. She had a naturalistic approach to acting, and in silent film days, that was almost revolutionary. To Brownlow, she explained, "I would not run around like a goose crying, 'Ooh, the little birds, ooh, a little bunny.' That's what Mr. Griffith taught his ingenues, and they all did the same thing." I would think that Lillian Gish might have had a thing or two to say about that remark. Pickford's approach was to make her characters as believable as she could. George Cukor called her the screen's first method actress. But equaling and almost overshadowing her art was Mary Pickford's growing fascination with the business side of the movies. It may have been born during the lean years after her father's death when Mary was 5. Whatever the source, she became a shrewd and brilliant businesswoman. She was unparalleled as a judge of her own material and equally adept at bidding up the price of the character known as Little Mary. As her earnings went over $500,000 a year, Adolph Zukor named a studio after her. Then in 1919, she joined Chaplin, Griffith, and Douglas Fairbanks Sr. in founding United Artists to distribute their work, an act that prompted the famous quip, "The inmates have taken over the asylum." Actually, what they'd done was to change the artist-employer equation permanently. We've chosen tonight's clips to give some idea of Mary Pickford's range. After these, we'll have on stage 3 men from her life, both personal and professional. We'll conclude with a rarity, Daddy Longlegs, directed by Marshall Nealon. It's been shown in Los Angeles publicly only once since it was made, 74 years ago. We are fortunate to have pianist and arranger Robert Israel and his ensemble here tonight to accompany our film clips and Daddy Longlegs. We'd like to recognize them all now. The biograph shorts she made for D.W. Griffith are from Mary Pickford's formative years on screen. It was while making one of them, Friends, actually, in 1912, that Griffith had his cameraman, Billy Bitzer, experiment with bringing the camera in for one of the first close-ups. Griffith was excited by the results. Biograph, he learned, was not. "We are paying this girl the large sum of $100 a week," they said indignantly, "and we want to see all of her, including her feet." The first of the biographs that we're going to see is Willful Peggy, made in 1910, in which a rebellious Mary resists an arranged marriage. After that, we'll see a bit of the 1912 melodrama, The Mender of Nets, a tragic love triangle. The beautiful dark-haired actress opposite her is Mabel Normand in the only screen appearance together. Willful Peggy and Mender of Nets. Early gender bending. In Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, for Adolph Zukor's famous players, Mary again played a child, an 11-year-old whose pluck and resourcefulness makes her life with 2 unlovable aunts bearable. Keep in mind that in 1917, this child was now earning $10,000 a week. With bonuses, that salary was rumored to be more than $1 million a year. That's resourceful. It's just extraordinary. In 1919, Mary Pickford produced 3 independent features for First National. We'll see Heart of the Hills now, in which she plays a fiery Kentucky hillbilly with eyes for John Gilbert. In this film, Mary got to ride, to tote a rifle, and generally raise a little hell. Here's the rousing hoedown sequence. The film is Heart of the Hills. In 1926, at the age of 33, Mary finally played her last youngster. In Sparrows, she's Mama Molly, a courageous teenager who protects a group of children living in squalor and virtual captivity on a southern baby farm. We'll see 2 scenes from this in very contrasting moods, one with dramatic action, the second of enormous poignancy and restraint. This last, as Pickford holds a mortally sick baby, contains one of her great cinematographer Charles Rocher's most spectacular effects, again achieved totally inside the camera and on one piece of film, Sparrows. Mary segued bravely, if not altogether successfully, into the coming of sound. She made 4 features, of which Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew was her second. It's famous as the only appearance together of Pickford and her then-husband Douglas Fairbanks, and infamous for its screen credit by William Shakespeare, additional dialogue by Sam Taylor. Watch out for chairs, stairs, and bullwhips. Fine note to end our clips on. We have here tonight in the audience Mattie Kemp of the Mary Pickford Company, without whose help this program could not be possible at all. Is Mr. Kemp here, please? And now it's my great pleasure to invite 3 guests to join us tonight to share a few of their own memories of Mary Pickford. Charles Buddy Rogers. Douglas Fairbanks, Jr. And someone who may seem a bit of a surprise for this evening, Mr. Television himself, Milton Berle. It's a great pleasure to meet you all and to have you all here this evening. Mr. Rogers, you were not only Mary Pickford's co-star, but her husband for more than 40 years. Tell us about your sweetheart.
It's a very emotional night to see all of those films of Mary.
I'm sure it must be.
And I know she's way up there in heaven right now, and I can feel it, and I know she's up there, and I know she's smiling, and she's happy what we're doing. And we're happy to do it for her, aren't we, everybody? We're happy to do it.
Thank you so much. Mr. Fairbanks, I'm fascinated. How did you and Mary ever meet?
Well, I'll tell you, I was a little boy in the Netherlands Hotel in New York, and she came to call one day. I was on the floor playing with some trains. I was about 6 or 7 or 8 years old, something like that, and had some trains on the floor. And she came to call, and she was so tiny, I thought she was a little girl who'd come to play trains with me. So she came in. I said, come on down and play with my trains here. So by golly, she did. She got down on her knees and started going choo, choo, choo along with me in the train. We had some train crashes and things like that. It was only later on I realized that she was a grown-up lady and was just being very nice to me.
Oh.
That was our first meeting.
You know, I had heard that you were not raised by your dad. You were raised with your mother.
That's right, yes.
And I had heard that she was quite instrumental in making some kind of bridge between you and your father later on.
She was indeed. She was absolutely wonderful. Well, my father and I didn't have any breakup or anything. We were just shy of each other. We just didn't know how to get together very well. We were not very demonstrative. And there'd be long times, months and months and months between seeing each other. He'd travel around the world, and then we'd see each other, and he'd say hello, and I'd say hello, and be a long silence, and say, how are you? I'm fine, how are you? And that sort of thing. But it was Mary who sort of inspired us to get together and be close friends until we traveled together and became good friends. Mary did it all.
It was a very generous thing to do.
Oh, she was marvelous, yes.
I'd heard a story, or at least I'd read a clip once about her also generosity to somebody else when you were married to Joan Crawford, and she came to Pickford for the same
Oh, that's
time.
right, yes. That's a nice story. There was all sorts of concern. Joan was very worried about going up to Pickford because it had such a reputation of being like a royal palace of Hollywood, and she was told that she shouldn't do this, she should do that, and she almost declined to go at all rather than face up to this terrifying moment. But when she got up there, Mary was so sweet and put herself out to welcome her and make her feel at home. And there was never any strain ever after that. She was just marvelous about it.
You're one of the few people who kept in close touch with her in the last years. What was that like up there? Because she was quite reclusive, I believe.
Yes, well, she was ill and she's bedridden for the last few months of her life. But she was in wonderful, great spirits, I know. You know, she was a Canadian. And so it amused her, not amused her, but touched her to have Canadian flags all over her room. Maple leafs forever, you know.
Gladys Marie Smith.
That was it, Gladys
Yes.
Marie Smith, yes. And, well, she was wonderful. I'd sit by her side. And I remember one time she said, talking about old days of United Artists, Chaplin had moved abroad. He was living in retirement in Switzerland. And they'd had a fuss at United Artists. United Artists was a passion with Mary. She just loved the company and all that went to make it up. So when Charlie left and broke up the partnership, she was very upset, found it hard to forgive him. He just retired and went off to Switzerland. And so at one point she said she was very ill. It was, as I say, just her sort of last time, it was her last time being ill. She said feebly, "Do you ever see Charlie anymore?" And I said, yes, dear, I do. Whenever I'm in London, I see him. He comes over from Switzerland to go to his tailor and to his dentist and see some of the plays in the West End of London. And then he goes back to Switzerland again. Then I thought I'd make it up with these old partners and these old friends. So I invented a story that he always asked for her. He said, "He's always so sweet about you, Mary. He always says how you are and how much he loved you and how sorry he was that this partnership had broken up." He didn't say anything of the sort. I just made it up as I went along, trying to make friends for these dear old partners. And I went on and on. I laid it on with a trowel. Finally, she turned to me, and I'd finished. I ran out of things to say that Charlie had said. She said very feebly, "I still say he's an SOB."
What do you say?
Well, Mr. Burrell, you were the sort of surprise entry here this evening. How did you ever get to know Mary Pickford?
Well, before I start, which will be about an hour, first let me say, Sheila, I'm very thrilled to be here tonight with Buddy and Douglas Jr. Sorry, I'm so mixed up, I'm liable to do my own act. But I'm thrilled to be here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and I say this to the audience, because it's a double anniversary. It's the 100th anniversary of the birth of Mary Pickford, and also the 100th anniversary of my material. So that's what I'll tell you how I happened to be here. This lovely lady, Sheila, called me on the phone about 2 months ago, and she said to me, "Milton, do you believe in free speech?" I said, "Sure I do." She said, "Well, you're making one May 25th at the Sam Goldwyn Theater." That's the reason. I wrote these notes down because I got to remind. If you want to laugh, sit out there, please. Now, I wrote these notes down because I'm getting a little, putting on a little mileage too. I'm turning senility into an art form, but the real reason, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll tell this lovely lady and all of you that I am here because I am told that I am one of the few surviving actors who appeared in those early silent films that starred Mary. And I'll tell you how it started. May I tell you? I got to be on the set in December, so it ain't going to take long. I started out as a child at 5 years old as the Buster Brown boy. You know, the ad for the Buster Brown shoes. And with my dog, Tig, my name is Buster Brown. I live in a shoe. This is my dog, Tig. He lives there, too. Well, I'll tell you what happened. Charlie Chaplin, whom you were just talking about, the greatest. He saw the ad, and he needed a little boy in a new film that he was making in California called Tilly's Punctured Romance with Marie Dressler. So he called the magazine about the Buster Brown boy, which was me. And the next thing I knew, I was in my first silent picture, Tilly's Punctured Romance. And if you sneezed, you possibly missed me, but let me describe the scene. It was a park scene, and I would come in selling papers. And Chaplin wouldn't buy a paper because I think Mabel Norman was sitting on the bench with him. This is 1913 or 14. And he said, I want to sell your paper. He said, no, go away, go away. And he slapped me. He slapped me. The way Mary was slapping, but even harder. And he made me do several retakes. My face ended up black and blues, but it was worth it. And to show you how one thing leads to another, the Buster Brown led to Charlie Chaplin, which led to the woman we are paying tribute tonight, Mary Pickford. And let me explain how that happened. Mary saw me with Chaplin and Dressler in the picture in 1913, and she needed a precocious youngster to play her kid brother, Buddy, I told you this story, her kid brother in Little Lord Fauntleroy. And so she must have gotten a good recommendation from Chaplin. I guess he said, hire him because the kid can sure take a punch or something like that. So she put me in the movie, married. Now, if memory serves me right, the first scene that I ever played with Mary, she was pleading with somebody, and I was standing next to her. It's a true story, I swear. While she was I was doing the scene. While she was performing, I was moving around, waving my hands, and not even looking at her. And you know how particular and perfectionist that Mary was. And I wasn't looking at her, so she said to the director, cut, please. Then she walked over to the director, and she whispered to him, she said, the kid is catching flies. He's detracting from the whole scene, especially from my 2 scene, not the 3 scene. So she took me into her dressing room, and sweetly she said to me, what a brain she had. She said to me, hello, your name is? I said, Milton Berlinger. That was my right name. And she said, you know, I like you so much, you're going to be a big star. In fact, I like you so much, young man, I'm going to put my arm around your shoulders and hug you and squeeze your hand while we retake the scene. Well, then we walked out of the dressing room and we started the scene again. And boy, did Mary squeeze my hand. Holy God, I couldn't move a muscle. I felt like my feet were nailed to the floor. Between Mary and Chaplin, I wound up blue in the face, broken fingers, and I could hardly breathe, I swear to God. Well, after that first picture, Mary, whom I loved, one of the greatest talents there was, she put me in several more films. One was this. I was one of the little boys in there. You didn't recognize me. I had the Buster Brown hair, yeah. In Sparrows, Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, and a few others that I can't remember from those days. And I never caught flies again and detracted. And believe me, neither did any actor who appeared alongside of me ever do that again. So I learned one lesson from Mary, but I'll be through in about an hour. But I would say, to continue, how one thing, ladies and gentlemen, leads into another. Several years later, Mary married Doug Sr., right? And you must have seen me in some of his in some of Chaplin's pictures and Mary's pictures, and he put me in your dad's pictures. He put me in The Mark of Zorro and The Thief of Baghdad. Now I'm known as the Thief of Bad Gags, so don't make it. Around that time, as you said before, they formed United Artists, and so I feel tonight, with this tribute that is with such great pride that they form, United Artists, that I can say that I worked with all 4 of them, with D.W. Griffith, whom I appeared in one of his films. See if you remember, it was back some years ago. It was called America, with Carol Dempster and Neil Hamilton. And in the 1920s, you all know it, well, then, oh, by the way, I always thank them because I thought I had my mother with me. When didn't I? And we were invited to Pick Fair. My mother and myself were Pick Fair, and to see the beautiful home. And incidentally, 60 years later, I don't know if you know that Pick Fair was bought by Jerry Buss. Did you know that? Yeah, and then he invited me over, and of course he changed the name to Bus Fair, and he only...
Why didn't I see that coming? Why didn't I see that coming?
And he only charged me $3 for the whole tour. Anyway, there's one little anecdote I'd like to tell and then split, which I think I did. Now, Mary and me, about 15 years ago, this is about Mary and me, about 15 years ago, I made a commercial for Chrysler, a car commercial, and the studio was at La Brea off Sunset, a one-stage studio. And it was musty, and the car was there for the commercial. And as I walked in, I was all alone, the cameras were there, and there was an old gentleman sitting there, must have been 74 years old. And he looks at me and he says to me, yes, what? I said, where's my dressing room? He said, what dressing room? I said, well, this studio. He said, well, we only have one stage here, and that's dressing. Sound like Brennan. And he said, and that's the dressing room. Well, the dressing room had a mirror, a shelf, and, pardon me, I got so much gas, I'm being followed by Arabs. But this, sorry I have to drop these in, but I can't help it. Anyway, wait. So he showed me the dressing room, and just one dressing room with a mirror, and one not even a bathroom. They had a sink. So I looked at him, and I walked back to him, and I said, how long you been here? And he told me. And there was an aura about the place, and I said, I've been here. You ever get that feeling that you've been someplace before, you never knew it? I said, my God, I know this place. I said to him, what was this before? He said, this was always a shooting stage. We only had one stage. We shot silent pictures here. It's down here at La Brea, off Sunset. He said, yeah, Mary Pickford used to shoot pictures here. Then I got it. I knew it immediately, that this was the sound stage, and that was the dressing room that I was in, that Mary Pickford took me in and said, I'm a lovely little boy, I love you, and all. That's the same room. Now, I'll tell you one thing. I like to say this, I have it's getting late, and
the musicians are going to be overtime before we
oh,
know
they
it.
are? Good, I belong to the union. Before I close, I just want to say, when I found out I was going to talk and be here tonight and speak about this great talent, I was in love with Mary as a child. And I searched my memory, which only took a minute, and I suddenly remembered an incident that I'd like to repeat, which Burl usually does. So I went through my archives, and I found something, believe it or not, that I had written in 1922. I'll tell you, I was only 14, and at that time I was appearing in vaudeville down here, right in L.A. at the Hill Street Theater, and in those days, along with 6 acts of vaudeville, they also showed a top silent picture, right? And above all things, the one that was showing that week, that bill I was on, was Mary Pickford in Tests of the Storm Country. So I got an idea, beginner's luck, but I got an idea. As part of my act, this is what I usually did, I wrote some special lyrics to a George M., at the Hill Street with the picture, I wrote some special lyrics to a George M. Cohan song that was very popular at the time. Now remember, I was only 14, And I sang these special lyrics at the conclusion of my performance, and I dedicated it to America's Sweetheart. I dug in the files.
Will you sing it?
Will I what?
Sing it?
Will I sing it? You don't have to beg me. Now remember, I was only 14. Great lyric, Milton the poet. But I meant it. Oh, it was Mary, Mary, the sweetheart of the silver screen. She has such charm and grace, the prettiest face I've ever seen. I'd like to marry Mary, but Mary's Mr. Fairbanks' wife. We can't walk down the aisle, but I know that I'll love her all my life. God bless you, Mary.
Gentlemen, thank you all very, very much. Thank you all, gentlemen, very, very much.
I made the band a little more money. Thank you very much. This has been a very wonderful evening. And Douglas, sorry to wake you up, but I would like to say you look terrific.
So do you. You look great.
Thank you. Buddy, Charlie, I go back a long time. And God love you, and God keep you, and God bless you, and good. There's one very...
Why, I just want to ask you, why was it years ago,
Yeah.
Mary told me that she was talking to Clark Gable, and he said, Mary, you're not going to marry that punk, that Buddy Rogers, are you? For God's sake, you're not going to do that. Why, it wouldn't last 6 months.
Oi.
And it lasted 47 years.
Oh, boy. 47 years.
Well, we are going to conclude the evening with an entire feature here, and a little bit more than an hour feature of Miss Pickford's. And we're going to get on with it, I think, right now.
Okay.
We have to move. Yes. Thank you, everybody. I love seeing you. I loved everybody here.
There we go. Mary Pickford's great cameraman, Charles Rocher, once said, Mary knew everything there was about making a movie. She could do everything. Producer Sam Goldwyn added, disguised by that lyric profile is the mind of a captain of industry. Goldwyn and she were not close. In her autobiography, she reports that one day he saw her on the lot and said, my God, $10,000 a week and she is walking to the set. She should be running. Someone once said that Gloria Swanson was the second woman in Hollywood to make $1 million and the first one to spend it. The first woman in Hollywood to make $1 million didn't spend it. She accumulated an enormous personal fortune, and she left the bulk of her estate to set up the Mary Pickford Foundation, which continues to fund her many charities and good works. Mary Pickford removed herself from acting in 1933. Having seen a few of her very varied roles tonight, we might selfishly mourn for the women Mary Pickford might have given us had she stayed and had her audience permitted her to play them. But no one had a clearer vision of the arc of Mary Pickford's career than Pickford herself. In a 1965 interview, she said this to Kevin Brownlow, and I find it infinitely poignant. "I left the screen because I didn't want what happened to Charlie Chaplin to happen to me. When he discarded the little tramp turned around and killed him. The little girl made me. I wasn't waiting for the little girl to kill me. I know I'm an artist. I could have done more dramatic performances, but I was already typed. My career was planned. There was never anything accidental about it. It was planned, it was painful, and it was purposeful. I'm not exactly satisfied, but I'm grateful, and that's a very different thing. I might have done better, I don't know. There are unexpected circumstances that hinder us, and we just have to put up with them. We have to do the best we can under pressure." And on that rueful grace note, let's look at Mary Pickford now in 1919 and Daddy Longlegs, in which she moves from 12-year-old to teenager to college student to young woman with remarkable skill and subtlety. It will be accompanied again by Robert Israel and his ensemble. Thank you so much, Robert Israel, for all of us having a chance to understand what the silent film experience should be like. And on behalf of the Academy, thank you all so much and good night.